Alright, welcome to another edition of What the Fuck Happenings Here in the Amendum. So I was just thinking about audience and conversation and people. And the fact is that, yes, this is, you evolve through your life. That's kind of annoying. I'll wait till that stops. Alright, sort of stopped. Anyway, we'll see how long that lasts. Anyway, yes, that go through life. You start off, and it's really simple. Like, you could make a friend really easy because you only have to have one thing in common. You both like being outside. You like to play catch. Something. You have something in common. You look similar. Who knows? There's something that makes somebody else's company tolerable and acceptable and maybe even interesting. But it's all pretty simple because you haven't formed a whole bunch of notions of reality. And it sort of happens even when you're an adult. You can have conversations with people for maybe even 10 years and not realize that you fundamentally disagree about some very important things, but the very important subjects never came up. So you don't know how important those disagreements are because you haven't really run into them yet. So I could argue that that sort of happened with me and the Mystic or me and Piro, where it just took a little picking before you could get to this underlying um, reason to find the other person isn't on your side after all. So it might be like when you're fighting the Nazis, in World War II, and you have a Russian comrade who's also fighting the Nazis. And they're, you know, dying in grotesque numbers, fighting for the cause, doing you a favor, so to speak, in the sense of causing gross attrition to your enemy. And so you have something in common, and, but 5 minutes after that project is over, you find out that, you're in one way or another have missiles pointed at each other or have fundamental disagreements that just aren't going to be tolerable. Now, I don't know which side is guilty, right? I mean, were we guilty for thinking that socialism or communism was some diabolical threat? Or was the Russians saying that somehow they had to take us over because we were a diabolical threat? So you could make lots of arguments about who was the problem child in terms of making a relationship that really shouldn't be that big of a problem. That is, you've chosen to live a different lifestyle. It's almost like somebody choosing to live, okay, as a homosexual versus a heterosexual. This really shouldn't be a problem for anybody, right? Why is it our business, so to speak? And why is their business not just their business? But anyway, so you can get into all kinds of arguments why and who's at fault if you can't find some way to get around those stumbling blocks that are actually, they're not just stumbling blocks. They're, they're actual gigantic, impediments to any kind of collective action as human beings. It just ruins the relationship, so to speak. And I could argue that frankly, I don't think I could have a friend who was a Trump supporter. I mean, I just can't do that. So there's lots of things that would just find. No, you can't. You can't be that stupid, so to speak. You can't be that crazy, to defend any part of it. And even if, the opposing side has this one issue where they're out of their minds, this open border bullshit, you still don't sleep with the enemy, so to speak. It's just that's too silly. In my book, I'm just going based on, to me, it's a pretty catastrophic. The damage, when you add up all the damage Trump's done into the Supreme Court, the courts in general, it's a catastrophic. It's going to take decades to get rid of the mess he made. It's really easy to lower taxes, really hard to raise taxes. It's all those kind of arguments. So once somebody successfully gives the fortune to the rich, it's very hard to take the fortune back from the rich. So all of that kind of crap. So anyway, so it just ends up with this, it's just a lot harder to get along with people the older you get because you have more opinions. I guess that would be the key point. You have acquired a bunch of, you know, statements in your head where you've put things on the good side and you've put things on the bad side. So you have good things and bad things. I could sort of say that this sort of goes to even, stuff like, look, I smoked pot when I was a teenager, and yeah, it was a frivolous, little fun thing to do. Okay, get stoned, blah blah blah. But then you grow up and you say, this is no way, to live your life. It's stupid. It doesn't make any sense to have to exist in that, defective, and it frankly is a defective state. It's like booze and all the rest of it. You figure out what's the fucking point. It really isn't. The party isn't nearly good enough to justify the price you're going to pay for it. And so you figure out this doesn't do humanity any good, doesn't do people any good, doesn't do the world any good. Fuck this. This is poison. I mean, it is just a menace. It doesn't make great people. It doesn't make people mature into great things. So it's even all this talk they do with the LSD, all the silly Cybin people. They think they're gaining all this enlightenment, doing all, no, they don't do a damn thing, okay? They have a delusionary experience and think they touched God or something, and it's just a big pile of emotive shit. It's emoticons. This isn't a productive thing. It's not useful. It doesn't get us anywhere. So nobody should be for it. Nobody should be waving a flag gung-ho for this bullshit. So this goes all the way right to sports and the Olympics and all this other shit. It's one thing to say, okay, you like it. Okay, you're a partier or you're whatever. But don't pretend this is good for anything. Don't pretend this is somehow productive and valuable and it, makes the living experience so much better on planet Earth. It's a gigantic waste of productivity and resources. So grow the fuck up and get a rational opinion. Say you're kind of a silly person. Just admit you have this silliness and you need to indulge in silly behavior. But don't sit there and glorify it. Say, please, let me be silly, even. But don't pretend you're doing something, useful or productive or valuable. Don't pretend that you're saving the dignity of the human race because we'll have this freedom to be assholes. The freedom to be an asshole is nothing to save or preserve, or to promote or to propagandize in defense of. So that's just ridiculous. Anyway, I didn't want to get on a rant. Yeah, I didn't want to. I never want to, but that's usually what it turns into. I'm just trying to just state that there is this weirdness about life where it gets just more and more and more difficult to stay comfortable with your race, okay, the human race, your kind, you just can't find them anymore. You become an island, frankly, in so many ways, and it's and it's just because of what this capacity to increase the clarity with which you look at things and be able to define them. You're not mushy anymore. You don't have vague opinions on subjects. You're not vaguely a capitalist or vaguely this or vaguely that. You're very specifically something, and you're very specific in your reasoning of why you're that thing. And you've thought through it over and over, and you're quite confident in those positions, and you're just unyielding now. You just can't be comfortable with something that is so, from your perspective, stupid. Okay. So the physics thing has really done this to me in a more dramatic way, I would say, just because I found out that all these people who say they love science and respect the pursuit of knowledge and the whole Star Trekian voyage kind of thing, yeah, they're all lying sacks of shit. They're all just on some religious pursuit. They're all just trying to glorify nonsense and promote some crystally wooey, crappy, mushy view of reality. And that's all they're in it for. Truth, that doesn't matter to these people. And they're so obvious in terms of, their inability to admit obvious things about the circumstance. So it's like I could have this argument about ephilism and say, isn't it kind of obvious that being murdered is kind of a shitty thing to do to somebody? I mean, having a kid, you're going to, the kid's going to be murdered. You're going to be an accomplice to murder. So just admit, yeah, that's kind of ugly. Wow, yeah, that's pretty weird that I'm going to be imposing murder on my own kid. Oh, I mean, I'm in complete cahoots with nature, and we're going to murder my child, um, in some brutally horrible way, with all likelihood. Brutally and horrible. I'm not going to be able to stop the cancer. I'm not going to be able to stop the heart attack. I'm not going to be able to stop the silly crap where his arm gets ripped off in some machine somewhere. I don't have any control over any of that shit. And you'd think people would just, man up, and say, well, I still want to have a kid, but yeah, I can see, gee, I can understand why some people might be offended that I think it's okay to murder my kid. That I think the kid's going to really appreciate and say, thanks, I really loved being murdered. It was really a great deal of fun. And it's a slow process for a lot of people, right? So I see these elderly people around here, and they've had this and that cancer, and they've survived that, and then they had this, and then their eyeballs are popping out, and they had to survive that, and it's just, oh fuck, it's just terrifying. And you're just saying, well, nobody can be just honestly just say, well, that's pretty terrifying, frankly. If I want to end up like that, I mean, fuck, you know. You have the other examples, where there's people who are just, well, frankly, they're not very good examples because, the other survivors are just sitting in a couch watching TV all day. And you're just saying, well, shit, what the fuck? Do I really want to just be pretend to be alive? Like, you're still breathing and your brain is sort of interacting, pretty rabbit, cute kitty, while you're drooling on yourself. Yeah, I don't know if that's what I would call worth it. I mean, is it worth the oxygen you just wasted? To have these whatever fluffy Teletubby images in your head, and that's what a lot of old people become, right? They become viewers of Teletubby. They can't do any better than that. AstroTurf and Fluffy Rabbit. So come on, fess up. That ain't no good. All right, and the fact that obviously we all end up being diverse, even if even if you think you could somehow force your child into the mold you want them to pop out as, some sort of, I want him to be Bruce Jenner, and then you find out, wait a minute, Bruce Jenner's going to go through a whole bunch of dramatic, life struggle, and end up being whatever it is, Brucey. And the whole thing is like, what the fuck? Wow, maybe I don't want to try to mold my kid into that anymore. If that's the price paid, or the whole ballerina thing. I wanted to be the ballerina, and then you find out, well, yeah, it's just have her hips replaced at 45. Do you really want to impose that? No, that would be pretty goddamn dumb. And so then you realize that, you haven't gotten consent to even have this kid. The kid might not really appreciate the struggle at all. They really might not want to live in the future because the future looks pretty dark and dank and disgusting. So why would you fucking impose that on them? So just be honest and say, well, yeah, I don't have good reasons. I don't have, I can't really in any way defend what I'm doing. I just have this terrible passion that I somehow must control something else's life. And, I want to rub its hiney. I mean, really, is there any other reason people have kids than they want to play with them? I'm not saying it's overt molestation, but there's got to be something about it that's, what the fuck's the appeal? I personally can't see it. I can't understand what the fuck I want this job of watching this thing constantly to make sure it doesn't, it's like having a puppy, and you got to watch, it's going to chew on the Clorox bottle. My dog actually did that. That it was just sitting there, blah, 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 because it lost all feeling in its mouth from, chewing on a Clorox bottle. It was fine, but I just mean, there's all this stuff you got to take care of, all this stuff you got to worry about. And what if it does, what if it bit something really important? What if something really drastic happens? And then you got to show up and you got to do medical care or something, and you don't know what the fuck to do. And, something actually bizarrely horrible happens. And the fact is, this actually happens to people. They watch their baby die, and then they, 3 days later say, let's make a new one. So we can kill it too. Because it was fun, wasn't it? I mean, you can't make any sense out of this shit. How could you be friends, or How could you feel connected to? Or how could you feel, oh, let's share our humanity? How could you do anything like that with these fucking sadistic ghouls? That's not possible. I can't sit there and say, oh, yes, here's my friend, this sadistic ghoul. Fuck that. So, yeah, it is a dilemma. So, this is all getting around to the subject of what's the real problem here. And the real problem is I don't have any audience anyway. So, all this shit I'm talking is just a, what's the point? Right? Because you can't acquire an audience. You can't, there's no way you can talk louder from nowhere. And the point is that all these platforms essentially deplatform you. So we know that Google promotes videos based on whether they have ads on them, right? It's important that you put ads on your video because, YouTube has no incentive to promote videos that don't have ads on them. And then besides that obscenity, even if you did, they're still just care about popularity. So, I mean, if you're not popular, if you're not gaining audience, if people aren't saying, oh, I have to watch these videos in some sort of passionate way, you're fucked. Okay, you're not gonna gain any new audience. You're not gonna get a chance to engage with any people and explain why what you're saying is important or any of that horse shit. And then on these other platforms, you go online and they just deplatform you. So, I've gone online repeatedly just to talk about physics, just to make physics arguments, right? Not to rag on people, not to talk about how their mother's a slut and their father's a crook, not to waste time doing all that crap, just to talk about physics and the fact that they've drawn a bunch of assumptions that are really stupid and the evidence demonstrates it's stupid and logic demonstrates it's stupid, and they won't let me do that. So every single platform, Reddit, whatever that Q thing is, all the science ones, right? So they have Stack Exchange, they have these different places, these message boards where you can go discuss stuff. Every single platform, including Wikipedia, has booted me merely for arguing physics. Nothing else. I didn't do a damn thing else but make physics arguments. And that kind of tells you the story, right? So that's really the story of trying to interact with humans on the internet it completely fails because the humans on the internet will censor you. They're just going to just say, we're the majority, okay? We have a majority opinion, we can control things, and we will impose a strict standard that you can't possibly have any opportunity to make us look ridiculous. You can't say anything to make us look stupid, all right? You're not allowed to, all right? And that's essentially what happens, is these little majorities get to control all of these places you go to be a free speaker. So all of the places where you need to go, they automatically, it's like they got a moving sidewalk. So say if you had a speaker's corner, there'd be a sidewalk where they could just make you further and further away until you're a mile and a half away. And there's no you could throw notes in a bottle into the sewer maybe and have the note go down the sewer and maybe somebody could fish it out. But that's the only chance you're going to have to get heard. So that's a real obstacle to this function. Now, part of that made me start thinking was I was thinking about, well, I do have some audience, right? Okay, so you got a group of semi-devoted people to the subject. A lot of them sound like they want to do something to help, but they don't do anything to help. They don't write anything. Right? And then with this whole AI thing, I was thinking, why did I have to go use AI? I mean, obviously other people have, no brains in head. And somebody has. But none of he was already making videos. I'm saying none of the people who don't want to be in videos and can't actually make videos because they're too awkward or feel too uncomfortable, it's putting too much pressure on them. There's nothing stopping them from feeding AI a few little pages of stuff and making videos. And I'm saying, why is this the kind of thing I had to do? Because I don't need an AI. I mean, in a sense, I'm still going to argue it's an enhancement. It is a tool. It can be used for good. All right, I understand all the negatives that come with it, but I'm just saying you can't deny the fact that, it makes good arguments. It sometimes is inventive, which I find miraculous, but it's inventive purely by accident, which is the funny part. I mean, the other day it drew a stream, with a boat, and had the water going the wrong way. a boat tied to a pier. The water was going the wrong way, and you're just saying little things like that just are hilarious. That it doesn't have it doesn't have our combined skill at pattern matching, so it really can't see those kind of glaring mistakes. It's really not smart. Okay, it's just I know the modern mystic says it's actually works the way our brain does, but it doesn't work anything like our brain. So that's just bullshit. Our brain is doing a lot of visual matching and then comparing the visual statement with a word. So for every word in our vocabulary, there's a clear picture. Words don't have clear pictures for AIs. But anyway, I don't want to argue the technology. That would be inane. That would drive whatever audience exists far, far away. Okay, to start arguing about how language models work and whether or not our brains are language modeling. But I should just point out, just because it's always on this subject of what I'm arguing about, which is feelings, and how we're squandering the sensations we experience. We are experiencing a bunch of negative sensations we should never experience, that is dying horribly, or being sick beyond your tolerance. We should never do any of that shit. And it's just a colossal waste, and clearly understanding how brutal and horrible nature is. It's just a terrible mess of carnage. I mean, just mass fucking murder. It's a videotape of school shooting over and over and over again. It's little kids being shot all day long. That's nature. I mean, it's a disgusting event. And I just have to think about it for a minute to almost freeze me in my steps. It's so bad. So what was I saying? I was saying something about something being bad. Yes, that's the nature of feelings. So feelings are the real subject. I mean, the thinking part is easy. I mean, that's just a matter of associations, connecting things with two arms to things with two arms, or six legs to things with six legs. I mean, that kind of pattern matching is just easy. So intelligence isn't complicated, but feelings, that's the weirdy one. So, they have this word qualia for, the idea of a feeling. And I hate, the word is, gay, creepy, whatever. It's just not a great word, qualia. But the fact is that's what it is. It's completely different. Okay, it's this thing that's just so fucking bizarre that I can sense a negative. I can my brain creates the grotesqueness. It creates bad right there inside of my brain. Something, unpleasant to experience. It can create unpleasant. So that's a profound event. And they're trying to almost say that the AIs are experiencing unpleasant, our dissidence, our pain. And it's just such a joke, And so they're really just, again, it's just more, just fuck logic, fuck science, fuck being having a rational conversation, because it's nothing to do with it, okay? Because an AI, might once in a while recognize the water's going in the wrong way and say, well, that isn't quite right, I have to fix that. That doesn't mean it had a feeling. It didn't feel that the water was in the wrong way. It didn't have a pain because the water was going the wrong way, where that's what happens to us. So, so again, it's just more of this nonsense. It's just so hard to communicate with people, have a rational conversation with people. It just, it's just really, depressing. And like I said, the only optimistic point is that, people on their own are figuring out life is complicated and messy, and they're not running, to the maternity ward kind of thing. They're not running to make babies. At least the ones with a brain. And so that's the only bright side here is life itself. The experience of 16 years of maturation, for most people, they figure out in those 16 years, this is messy. And I can't really hardly take care of myself. How the hell am I going to take care of a kid? So they're figuring out that, that's a burden they're not ready for. And not being sucked into being reckless and stupid and making more of it, and being responsible for more of it. So, and if they wait, if they wait till they're 22, big difference, right? 16 versus 22, you're talking about whatever, 500% fewer kids or whatever it is, right? You go from 5 to 1 or 5 to 2. Big difference. So yes, obviously the point is that as people get older and wiser, the appeal of screaming baby, huge liability, autistic kid, all that crap, the reasoning sets in, and they recognize that, well, even if they have some gooey feeling that they need to rub little kids, they really don't need it that bad. Because it's going to be really expensive, and if it goes wrong, it's going to be a life of insane amounts of unpleasantness and burden. I had to take, when I was a kid, I tell you, I've said this many times, I used to babysit or take care of a retarded child, mongoloid, severe. He was very active. He wasn't autistic in that sense. Very active. You had to watch him all the time. Had to control him all the time. He would punch and hit and he'd pull hair out. He'd do all kinds of things. Very difficult. And I just had to babysit him. Okay. I just can't even imagine the stress. And I saw it in their faces. I mean, obviously, the guy was a minister, which made it all kind of ironic. That God would give him this gift of a child he'll never have a conversation with. he was never going to be verbal in any way, and he's just constantly irritated and pissed off. Essentially, very hard to entertain him. All right, and you can't, just the stress of imagining a life. All right, every day. Every single day. You can't walk away. You don't get a vacation. Well, they got a vacation when I showed up. But that's it. That's their little vacation. Oh, fuck. Fuck you. I mean, who the hell, is going to sit there and... I'm sure, if we could... They're probably dead now. But, I'm sure you could dig up these people. They got divorced. Everything went to hell. I mean, because, it's impossible to survive it. The kid, he finally died when he was 18 years old after 7 surgeries, and, just horrible, terrible, awful story. Just tragic all over the place. Maybe they would just sit there and say again, they would just glorify and defend it. Oh, it was God's gift, and I sucked up the pain and the suffering, and, it was a beautiful thing. I suffered like Jesus, or I don't know, some weird narrative they're going to write that this is something you do to people. That you go ahead and take the risk of this happening again, and 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 no, you don't. So anyway, all right. Well, that's a beginning. Yeah, kind of a rant, but So anyway, those were the thoughts of the day. And so then, I guess I'll talk more about the fact that it is just kind of strange that, it's just so hard, I guess. Or, well, I certainly understand why people don't want what I'm getting online. I mean, being somebody who's a dissident, you pay a pretty substantial price for saying what the majority doesn't want to hear. And that's almost scary that this is so common that you're treated this shabbily by the majority, that they're so afraid of these majority opinions that they have to go to such lengths to try to shut them up. The lying and the nonsense and the childishness of it. They can't even come close to even buffooning or mistreating somebody in a clever way. It's just this cheap shit ways. Anyway, so I understand why that deters people. All right, but you do have to argue that outside of that, there just isn't much contribution. You know what I mean? No one's feeding me subjects. No one's feeding me ideas. No one's feeding me a damn thing. And it's just kind of, I have an audience. There's 1,000 of you that show up, and it's just such a few number that actually can make a constructive, productive contribution, and that's all shit. So that's part of our community is actually, that's just the feebleness of it. Is the community kind of thing, the group, the collective warriors. And again, it's really this part of it is because we can't even agree, on all of these. We might agree on one thing. You also think animals are, wonderful, but then you think some kind of, but transhumanism is the answer. Some kind of bullshit. So we're at disagreement again. You think everything's a CIA operation or something. I remember I had a big fight with a guy who was, we agreed about everything, and then he started talking like some conspiracy nut, like the CIA was conspiring to do this and that and all this other crap, and I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? They these professional, whatever it is, spies and law enforcement, they show how incompetent they are all the fucking time. And these people think they have all these great skills at performing all these wonderful things when they can't, they can't solve any crimes correctly. They're always making a mess of it. So anyway, separate subject. All right. So maybe I will take a pause and do a second half that'll be the same as the first half, except reversed or something. Yeah, something like that. Maybe. All right, back. So I was thinking just now, just because I was just interacting with humans and, it's so frustrating and, they're such assholes. And you're saying, well, these are the people that somehow gravitated to a subject, somehow got linked to it somehow hit a related video. So, maybe they were watching some other dissident content, and so they're always, you end up being associated with other people in the same condition. So I could argue that, okay, say if I'm going to argue against conventional physics, yeah, there's going to be this automatic association that I'm a flat earther or I'm some other kind of anti-vaxxer or, some other kind of silly crap, and that I have that kind of agenda, when no, I just have an agenda against, physics that hasn't been tested and hasn't been proven and is bullshit. So I really don't fit into that category, but I'm stuck in it because that's what the algorithms of these places like YouTube decide. So, YouTube could give us the choice. Google could give us the choice. Like, search the whole internet. Yeah, I don't want you to profile me. I don't want you to feed me what you think I want to see. I want to see the internet, okay? And so I want to see YouTube. I don't want YouTube to sit there and say, okay, you watch this kind of video, now I'm going to give you a whole bunch of stuff that's somehow related. And it could be related because the words rhyme, or it could be related because it's a chick talking. It could be related for a whole bunch of dopey reasons that don't have anything to do with what I was interested in, what I was looking for. And instead, they could give us the option to say, no, just give me the internet. Give me YouTube. So when videos are posted, give me a random sampling of the popular people and the unpopular people. And it wouldn't be bad if you could keywords a little bit. I could put in a couple of keywords, like physics or this or that, ethics or, violence or some kind of word. And then you give me something that has those related keywords in the videos, right? Does YouTube give us that option? No. Could it give us that option really easily? Yeah. So why don't we, as the users, have the power? Why can't we tell YouTube, I don't want you to censor my content. I don't want you to degrade somebody's video because they got a bunch of downvotes. I'd almost rather see those videos. I'd almost like the feature where I could select, give me the stuff the majority hates. Give me the stuff that's the most hated stuff on the internet. Because you know what? 50% of the time, I'm probably going to find that content very interesting. Because, yes, often the majority is the religious kooks or the moralizing right to, the moral majority or some other nonsense. And they're just downgrading it because they don't like it politically or they don't like what it's suggesting or they don't like blah, blah, blah. And I probably might find it perfectly reasonable. But do we have any of those features? No. Because we gave the internet to corporations that just care about creating fake drama, simple drama, get the dumbest people the most excited. So if you can get a bunch of dumb people excited, then you can sell product. Because yes, commercials, it's just an absolute fact. Commercials are only effective based on IQ. So the dumber you are, the more effective a commercial is. The smarter you are, the less effective it is. Just an absolute fact. So commercials don't work on half, well, they don't work on, say, a percentage of that bell curve of intelligence. Educated people are less persuaded by fucking lizards telling them what insurance to buy. Yeah, they're just not as persuaded by a little jokey lizard. Jokey lizard doesn't really work. So, what's up? Yeah, that really doesn't work on intelligent people. They're not terribly interested in somebody spraying shit on their balls. All that kind of crap. Okay, it doesn't appeal to them. It doesn't make them magically say, "God damn, I gotta rush out and buy some of that shit." That they just advertise by farting into my goddamn computer. They just farted in my computer. Oh, I must rush out and buy that product. People who fart in my direction, I ain't gonna buy their shit. Okay, fuck you. Yeah, you're gonna fart in my direction? Fuck you. That's what intelligent people say. But dumbasses are like, is the Beavis and Butthead show on? That's what they're gonna do. Can I watch Jackass some more? I love it when they hit each other with the hammer. It's a great sport. Yeah, so the whole medium is controlled by imbeciles. I mean, that's why idiocracy is thriving, is because the idiots, are controlling all of the content that you can view, because all of the content is monetized by commercials. None of the content is monetized by anything called integrity. Any kind of some sort of funding source, like not-for-profits or something. And we know those can't be trusted anymore either, right? All the little think tanks, they're just political tanks, right? They're just places for rich people to store a bunch of money to get their agenda done. They're a bunch of tax-free crap. So they do their agenda, okay? They don't really fix anything or do anything. They just get a tax break to sell propaganda, to put up billboards and do other kind of crap and pretend they're a charity of some kind. Foundation bullshit. So it's all terrible. And the fact that, there's no popular channel on YouTube saying, come on, people, let's organize, to demand more rights, more user rights. We should be able to tell Google what to search for. Not have Google tell us what the internet is. We should be telling Google what the internet is. I want Google to show me the internet. I don't want it to show me what it's decided is the internet. Search engines actually used to search the internet. They look at YouTube comments and they look at this and they look everywhere to find something relevant or meaningful or something that connects to the keywords you put in. Not anymore. It's just, this is what Google's selling. We have ads on this website. We'll show you this website because it has our ads on it. We're making money. Every time you look at this website, we make money. Are we going to show you this website over here that doesn't have any ads on it? None of our ads are on it. Content's exactly the same. You think you think Google's going to show you the one with no ads? No. It's going to always defer to its associates, its buddies, its friends, its pals, its business partners. You think it's going to defer to the people saying its business partners are crooks? Oh, not very likely. I mean, it's such a racket we live in. And the fact that people can't even be motivated to fix any of it. All these screaming liberals now, right? It's just funny. It's a real divide, 50-50, all that kind of crap. And, and I was one of them. But they're all screaming and screaming, but they don't do a damn thing. They don't fix anything, okay? Even when they get elected, they don't do anything. They don't fix anything. They seem to only have one agenda, and it's to coddle and protect people that drive too fast and litter and make a mess and commit crimes and steal shit. They don't seem to be interested in preserving anything called civilization or improving it in any way whatsoever. They seem to talk a lot of, we're anti-corporation, but they're fucking whores for it. They just run right to the corporate feed. Oh, Facebook is my favorite thing. I pet Facebook every day. Oh, I love my Facebook. I couldn't live without my Facebook and my Twitter, my X. So even when it's, even when this hateful piece of pus buys the damn thing, they still play on it. They can't even figure out that maybe they shouldn't play on a platform run by their evil, this evil overlord. And the liberals can't even figure out, well, maybe I should reject the evil low overlord's product. Maybe I shouldn't pay his salary. God damn it. And you're saying, what the fuck? These people are useless. So, we really should. We could have a civilization, but people just aren't interested. They think it just poofs out of, capitalism will fart civilization somehow. Somehow, just as an accident of the rich, selfish fuckers, marching around, that somehow they'll just kind of fart fairness and decency and progress and all of that great stuff will just fart out of capitalism. No, it won't, you idiots. Okay, disease, pus, blight, dystopia is going to come out of capitalists' ass. That's what they're going to produce. That's what you're going to live in forever is goddamn sewage created by capitalism. Okay, too much capitalism, let's just say. I'm not against merit pay. I'm not against, competing a little bit. But let's just not pretend that capitalism is great for us. Capitalism creates a bunch of competition where people do the same things redundantly. Then they spend a ton of money on advertising, which is a complete waste of productivity, right? They put up, they build warehouses, do all this kind of infrastructure shit, and then they defeat each other, and then all that is wasted. All of that just goes nowhere. It's all bridges nowhere. So you end up with a ton of waste. And yes, the controlled communism, where you control every little minutia thing that takes place, is a failure too. But the idea that you could just invent a business, the idea of one, just elect somebody to run it, hire people to run it, and nobody owns it. Nobody profits from it. You just pay the employees whatever the business makes as a profit. Wow, is that too complicated? No owners, no rich people to pay, none of that crap. Just salaried employees whose job it is to keep their job. They keep their job if the business works well. If they rat on their employee, the guy next to him who's always drunk, always shows up for work late, does the product shitty, they're going to increase their own salary because they're going to make sure their business succeeds. That's ownership. That's employees owning the business even without owning it. Because they know it's all about what we do, what we produce. If we don't produce the product, we were out of a job. That's what capitalism should be. Oh, that's what business should be. That's what industry should be. Industry should be owned by the consumers and the workers. They should be deciding how much we pay. They should decide all of these things, because they both have a self-interest. And if you give both of them a vote, those self-interests will be counterbalanced. But does anybody talk about any of this on the internet? No. Anybody give a shit about improving our civilization? No. It's not even a conversation. That's deplorable. It's disgusting. Yeah, that's what it is. Because like I said, it's all rhetoric. People keep talking. Yes, there's people who are complaining about rich people, but they're not doing anything practical. They're not trying to motivate us, the non-rich, to use our collective power, to actually reform these things. I mean, if just a few of us, if you just get like 1 million people together, we could force Google to give us these individual rights, these rights to say, I don't want the internet you're promoting. I want the real internet. So, fuck your suggestions. Just give me the real algorithm's product, not the one you've modified based on what's in it for you. Okay? I don't give a shit what's in it for you. And the same with, like I said, YouTube. YouTube should be an open medium where people talking, if I'm interested in physics, I should be able to type in the word physics, and first I should be pretty assured that I'm going to get videos in fucking English. That should be one of the things I can say. Don't give me Hindi videos. Because I noticed that, it's really funny with physics, because a bunch of Hindi videos that are not in English, completely ununderstandable, they put an English title, they pretend it's in English, and it's not. I mean, it's just bullshit, frankly. It's a waste of my time. Why should 80% of the search results be in a language I can't understand? I mean, that's just wasting my goddamn time. Now, if I wanted them in different languages, fine, let me ask for it. But let me be able to filter out, for English. Let me be able to say English only, thank you. I mean, I got to be able to understand the fucking video. The translations are getting better, I have to concede. But, that's YouTube doesn't provide translations for, the low value videos. So anyway, just ranting. But I mean, it just really is. It's just so frustrating, existing as a human on Earth at this period in time, because there's just nothing that looks like it works. I mean, when I was a kid, you had the ACLU. You had some sort of mechanisms out there that seemed like they were fighting for the people, and decency, the right issues, and all that kind of stuff. And all that stuff got definanced. People just stopped giving a shit, and nobody would spend any money, on anything of social value. And so, and all the mechanisms that would be any kind of counteraction to the nonsense. But even when people were given the right to vote, right? I remember there was a kind of a famous referendum in one of those states where, like, next to Michigan. What the hell's that one over there? Well, anyway, they're given a simple proposal that would basically taking away the immunity judges have, where they can overtly, on purpose, by malicious act, violate your constitutional rights. So a judge could fuck precedent, didn't give a shit, just hated you and decided to put you in jail, and they think that's okay. Judges should have immunity. They should be able to violate your constitutional rights overtly, and they should never be able to put on trial. They should never be in any way prosecuted for the crime. They should just be allowed to commit the crime and have no penalty available for any human being. I mean, the fact that they've already done this with cops and all this stuff, they give these assholes immunity. Why would voters vote for that? Why would they vote to give these authoritarian people less accountability? Not more accountability, less accountability. They have a ton of power, and they have less responsibilities under the law, less obligations under the law. I mean, it's ridiculous. How does that happen? How are fucking dumb... How is the idiocracy, even though it's an idiot, how is it that much of an idiot that it votes to be oppressed? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. How do the rich and the oppressors, engineer all this propaganda that people somehow think they need to protect the government people from accountability? Where does that idea come from? And the idea comes from the government employees, actually. So that's the catch. There's a bunch of the idiocracy that's a government employee, and they vote for their interest. And their interest is, I don't want to be responsible for nothing. I want to just steal. I want to thieve. I want to act like an asshole. I want to treat people like shit. I want to do whatever the fuck I want, okay, with complete immunity. So, of course, that's why it gets voted for, is because these jackasses who are actually employed by the government get to vote. So... theoretically, if you're a government employee, you probably shouldn't be allowed to vote because you're toxic. Because it becomes your self-interest to oppress us. And fuck that. To defend your oppression. Fuck that. But again, there's nothing. Just nothing. Not even a peep out there on the super highway. It's just nothing. Of anybody talking about preserving civilization in any other silly way than the ones that are on this right-wingy thing who are holding up their Bibles and thinking this is the shit that matters. Ooh, he had sex and blah, 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 blah. Fuck that shit. I mean, obviously, within reason. I'm just saying, obviously, the whole exploiting underage women thing is just obscene. that should be criminal. But I just mean all of this interest about all this moral crimes when they can't even get to all of these gigantic ethical crimes that are routinely committed every fucking day. I mean, even with all these channels now that are exposing all this police brutality and obnoxious behavior, they still do it. And the reason why they still do it is because accountability is very rare. Very rarely do they actually pay a price for their abuse. So anyway, and that should really bother people. And it doesn't. And that's the part that's really scary. And again, like I said, they've already ruined the courts, right? So the court system too. See, the court system used to have a rule 20 years ago. Well, 25 now, I guess. If you were a judge, you had to obey legal precedent. That is, the cases that were already decided how you had to decide. So the judgments that were applied by other people and how other people were treated, that standard had to be used when you were going to apply the law to somebody else. You couldn't invent any new law, and you couldn't treat people differently than people in the past were treated. And then they broke all that, and they said judges can just make it up. They can have an unwritten decision. So they can decide a case completely aberrant to all of the standards, create some new standard, essentially, like, I hate Gary, so let's fuck him. That's his new standard. And they just pretend it's not illegal. It's not part of the legal history. So nobody has to treat anybody else like they treated this person or they treated that person in this case. None of that is applicable anymore. I mean, it just breaks the whole idea. It just breaks the whole judicial system to pretend all of these decisions don't have to agree with each other. They all have to agree. And that should be a way you appeal a decision, is to say, look, they treated Joe like this, and they treated Bob like that, and they treated Jim like this, so why am I getting treated like this? This is not right. I should get the same thing Bob got, or the same thing that guy got, or the same thing that guy got. And they broke that entirely. Just said, throw it out the window. Did we get to vote on it? No. Did a bunch of shyster politicians do it because of their self-interest? I guess. It's hard to imagine who would want that. Even you'd almost say even rich people. Why would the hell would they want to give judges the right to fuck them over? To create a completely aberrant judgment. That's just completely against any principles. So the whole system was supposed to be self-correcting, and they took all the self-correction out of it. They took all the mechanisms that allowed one judge to oppose another judge and all this stuff to fix the system, check and balances. That's the word, right? They took all the checks and balances out of the system and now gave them all immunity to boot. So it's just such bullshit. Now judges can actually, like I said, they could right to your face say, they could use the N-word. They could do whatever the fuck they want. Say right to your face, you're a second-class piece of human garbage. I don't really give a shit about you, okay? You didn't break the law, but I don't care. I don't like you, so I'm going to throw you in jail anyway. They could say those words, and there's not a damn thing you could do about it. Unless you want to spend 3 more years in court trying to defend yourself in an appeal where you send your appeal to a bunch of friends of the fucker who just fucked you over. I mean, it's really ridiculous, the lack of accountability. There should be a whole branch of government that's elected completely separate, from Democrats and Republicans, that just oversees the Democrats and the Republicans, just looks to find where they're pulling these shenanigans. That should be its whole project, is to be an FBI that just focuses on these fucking government employees. That's it. They should just be focusing on government employees and finding where they're breaking the fucking law and prosecute the fuck out of them. That's what we, the people, should be voting for, instead of giving these fuckers immunity. So anyway, that's a bizarre picture. I don't remember that one. Jesus. That's a mess of hair. Anyway, I never remember my hair being that mellow, straightish. But anyway, strange things happen in your life. Anyway, this whole, pageant, this long parade, and it just gets uglier and uglier. That's the part that's really pissing me off. The parade is just fat people in spandex now. There's nothing. The parade has just gotten so uninteresting. There's no little marching girls and mini skirts. There's no fun stuff. It's just all, yeah, yeah. It's all hoobies playing bing pinklers and stinklers and donklers and bink binklers. Ugh. Ugh. Anyway, so that's probably enough for now, right? Yeah. So maybe I'll add something later, but we'll see how it goes. God, I hate this planet. I just hate it here. Tough luck. Yeah, it's too bad. Yeah, all right. I mean, even if I could, afford to fly to the moon, I mean, yeah, come on, why bother? Uh, you know, blowing your brains out there ain't any better than blowing them out here. Anyway, till the next time, and such and so forth and whatnot. Yeah. God, I hate you people. Generally speaking, I hate you. Alright, back. So, in a completely unrelated event, this video anyway, I saw a picture of Stephen Hawking, and just remind you of just how insidiously weird, in terms of how distant brains can, you know, like, yes, we're both human, but brain works entirely different. I mean, just that whole, just living a life that crippled and disabled and dependent on others and would be just insufferably difficult for a person like me. I mean, I just, I couldn't live that way. Um, and then on top of that, this whole idea of having kids and in a circumstance where you're not going to have any chance of, you have no real chance, right? You have a disease for which there is no cure, and nobody survives more than like 5 years and all of that kind of stuff. Who even thinks about that? Who even think? I mean, you're just, no. I mean, admirable survival. I mean, admirable in terms of the courage to face it and all that kind of crap and blah 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 blah. But in a way, no. It's like the whole Olympics thing or something. It's like something that just doesn't make any sense. It's a waste of courage for a project that just can't be anything but grief and pain and who invests in that? You give up, try again if you're interested, so to speak. You're going to be born again, so why not? And then there's a whole backstory though of so much bullshit too. I mean, it's nice that he got to live as a important scientist kind of thing, but he really didn't. It's all imaginary physics. It's not any physics that's at all tangible. So someday, I say it's all going to be shown to be a bunch of drool. Sorry, but that's all it was. And it's. But anyway, whatever. So I'm just pointing out that there's just nothing. There's just no. It's like being a different species, or it's like a different phylum of organism. It's like insect versus whatever crustacean versus whatever sea cucumber versus I don't know. It just doesn't. They just don't have anything in common. Yeah, you could argue like a snail and a shrimp. A shrimp has like 6 million little different pieces doing all kinds of weird little crap. And a sea cucumber is a big blobby slug. Just kind of made out of slug. Has maybe little bloppy antennas or something. But that's all it's got. I just alien. I guess is the word. It's an alien perspective, an alien way for the world to bounce off you, and somehow you create a perspective or a viewpoint. And it's like, how you just can't see reality differently, in a sense, to be able to even, you know, compose words to explain the circumstance to somebody else, or to express your um, you know, reaction to the condition, which would be, holy shit, I'm fucked. You know, that would be my reaction. And how do I reduce how much of a mess I make? you know, no, just, well, whatever. No point in lingering on the subject, but it is one of those things that just shocks you that people can find a way to look at a circumstance and see anything but grotesque, ugly, disgusting, you know, all those kind of words. And somehow they see something dignified, beautiful, and something or other, And it's like, nah, no. So, yeah, I'm just not one of most people. So the common perspective, I guess, clearly isn't my perspective. And I can only say we sometimes share a couple of things in common, where you could say, yes, common people or average people, generally speaking, are a little bit careful about creating babies, because they, I guess, mostly understand that they're going to be held liable, for their existence, and will have to finance and, manage and, be effectively a slave to its needs and its rearing and all of that's its maintenance in some respect, right? I mean, obviously the system does that pretty poorly in terms of poor people. Obviously rich people, it's pretty good at getting money out of them. So, but yeah, it's just, people just aren't getting that there's the bigger picture. This is all part of a natural holocaust of just being replicators, okay, machines, copy machines, and they're just copying a putridly silly function of survivalist, and that's all people really are. We're all survivalists. We're all calculating some path that we can munch through this bullshit, and we're not too concerned, if we're stepping on the only available alligator heads to get across the stream, and the next guy won't be able to use that pathway. We're not too worried about, making a better future accessible to the things we're competing with. We're kind of hoping they all get their legs broken, so it makes it easier for us. So no one's going to steal our future path, our future wife, whatever, our future. It's just, you can't deny that, I only feel my pain, I don't feel yours. So I'm going to be a lot more focused on evading the pain I'm going to feel than the pain I can only imagine. And I only imagine it when I feel like being dignified and having character. I don't really feel it, or imagine it when I'm feeling weak and I'm feeling vulnerable. It's a lot harder to imagine and give a shit, because it's just a liability to what I'm going to have to endure. And that's all disgusting. It's disgusting to be a selfish, a built-in, self-interested. They use the word self-aware for their AIs now, like it's self-aware. You can only do that when you feel, and you can only do that when you feel bad, because that's the thing that makes it matter, is evading the bad feelings. It's really 90%, of the game. 99, 95, 97.68437% of the game is evading the bad stuff. You don't have to do much to end up in good, as long as you get away from bad. So, yeah, yeah. All right. So I'll call that a video, and and see how it goes, and blah 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 blah. So that's it for the commentary. I haven't decided what to do about the AI thing. It's obvious that there's people who are just incredibly hostile, um, and I really don't need to offend you, but there is some. Like I said, I can't deny the value in the way it constructs arguments in terms of how well it composes verbiage and presents it. It's just really good at being personable. I'm just not. Anyway, so yeah, we'll see. Yeah, I have no idea. It's probably going to be something I'll use just because it is. You get better feedback from it. Frankly, you get some kind of interesting. You put in some words and it gives you back. Something to react to. And frankly, most humans just give you back, I love you or I hate you, and that's not very valuable. So, yeah. So, anyway, till the next time, and such, and so forth, and whatnot. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, usual things, and such. So, till the next time, I think that's it. Yeah, that's all there is.